it's a real concern where they need to know and have some level of certainty that the products that they're going to invest in are actually going to sell.
There's so many brands we've seen even the last few years where they thought they were doing the right thing, so they bought a crap ton of inventory on a product that didn't move, and then like their back was against the wall. It's just a sad position to be in.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Right Hook Pod. We got Ray here, as always, together with me. If you are new here, this is the Right Hook Podcast, where we share tips around e-commerce, D2C, the strategies and tips that we deploy across our agencies to help brands grow. So do consider subscribing if you're not already. Ray's today's topic, I think, comes from several conversations that you and I have had with various different kinds of brands. Man, like almost all year, every year, it's a real concern where they need to know and have some level of certainty that the products that they're going to invest in are actually going to sell, right? If it's the same product, sure, but if they're looking to expand product lines or move into a new season, or move into a new category, even if they're going to be that brave, let's explore the ways that they don't get completely frozen scared or do the other thing, which is YOLO straight in and make a really high, quantity commitment, and then find themselves with a lot of inventory that they have to fire sale afterwards because it just didn't move.
Which I think would be fun to talk about that as well, because there's so many brands we've seen even the last few years where they thought they were doing the right thing, so they bought a crap ton of inventory on a product that didn't move, and then like their back was against the wall. It's just a sad position to be in, so you have to liquidate all of it.
I'd love for us to be able to use this time to explore how it's not pure guesswork, and it really should never be pure guesswork. That there are so many things that we can do to ensure that it is a wise investment into an area that already has signals, right? Like that there is interest in that area. So how do we, let's go maybe from like most expensive, most resource intensive methods, and then we can go all the way through to like the ones that are almost free to deploy. Yeah. Just to be able to get these signals and get some certainty.
So when we were chatting earlier this week about this topic, I actually found out that I think the most expensive, one thing I would nominate is you can actually hire an outside firm or even an individual to help you go and source your next product or products. Like they have like a process that they may go through. I'd probably say that one's the most expensive, because not only paying for the inventory cost, but you're paying like for that firm and whatever they charge. But here's the cool thing though, is especially if you're in a good cash position and profit position, what's really great there is you're getting expertise from someone who's done it for many, many other companies. Or if this is, you don't have a lot of experience doing this for yourself, like sourcing other products and expanding your product line, it's actually quite nice to have someone hold your hand that probably has some proven systems or thought process to go through it. So like if you can pay for it, it's going to be expensive, but it's probably one of the better experiences you're going to have, and like eliminate some of that stress, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Any type of merchandising analytics or retail analytics type firm that can then also overlay market information across that type of a planning is so super helpful. That being said, though, they would still require it's one thing to kind of plug in your data, and your Shopify dashboard in fact shows you a lot of that type of stuff already in terms of which products are moving, which products are not, which products are lagging, and the mix that they make up in terms of revenue into your store. Working with any type of firm like this, you would still need to have some core baseline of data and information collected on your end too, to be able to know these things. You can't just walk in there. It'd be a complete waste of your money if you're just walking in there and be like, just tell me, you're a sage. Tell me what my next hit song is going to be. Just based off of, the 5 seconds that you've met me. Beyond engaging a firm, let's maybe move on to the next one in here, where let's talk about, say, for example, a situation where a brand has a staple set of products that are already moving. Next season rolls around, they need something new. And we talk about this all the time we have on other episodes where new really does breathe a lot of life back into a brand because it's not the same old all the time, right? We're always looking for new. Cars, even though it's the same model, they have a yearly version of it, right? iPhone, same. They could have just kept the iPhone the same, but they change it every year. So, but for brands that are trying to keep it sensible to be able to move into this new, let's maybe talk about like small batch early access.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of strategies brands can do when they're trying to expand their product line, have new products. So one of the easier ways to move, if you're going to expand that, is going to be something that's a companion product to your main product line. And that's probably going to be also easier. Maybe even your manufacturer can also manufacture the same thing. So for example, if you're sticking within their same product type, so that's like let's say I sell leggings, there's probably a good chance if you want to add on bra tops to those leggings, your manufacturer is probably going to be the same manufacturer that could do it for bra tops as well. It's probably the same fabric, maybe the same prints, right? So that's probably quite easy. And then it'll be quite easy to then get a small batch to do that. Now, one thing that me and you have seen so many times is the brands, they have this idea. What's really sad is like or maybe it's someone on the team or maybe the founder, they're kind of like in their cave working on their laptop and like, I have this really great idea. And the costly mistake is them just pulling the trigger, buying 5,000 units that maybe cost them like 10 to 15 grand without going through some certain steps to make sure that you're really, 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 really confident in that product. And I think we've seen that, man, for example, like there's a brand that we used to work with last year where, the guy was really excited about the expansion, this new product, right? But he dropped 30 grand to do it. And no matter what he did, it just wouldn't move. But so much of his profit and his cash flow was tied up in that product. And it put a massive strain on his business.
Well, yeah, absolutely. 100%. To be able to, it's the same, any type of experiment really is the approach that we use. And we advise all the time is test before you invest rather than just like going full YOLO bro and just send it like full send on something that is completely brand new, especially if it's a product line expansion that is completely, it's one thing to say, okay, leggings brand is known for it and we're coming out with a new pattern. That's maybe a half step removed, right? So we've got like our neon greens, neon pinks, and neon purples. Now we've got like an animal print pattern. That's a half step removed. Moving on to like sports bra tops, that's a whole step removed. That's no longer leggings. That's something else. You start moving into like, I don't know, water bottles, right? It's several steps removed. You can actually, there is a way to think through and visualize how many steps removed are we putting something in front of what are brands known for at the core. So to test before you invest and go, how do we small batch this and involve, say, our VIP list or any type of inner circle list that we've collected in the past, now keeps also, one, makes it feel exclusive and also makes it feel like it's early access to identify whether it is the case or not, whether there is some heat in the market or not coming back the other way. And also the fact that it's small batch means that it's not like a $30,000 commitment. That part right there.
I think a lot of people don't realize too is they go and ask the manufacturer, hey, I have this idea, whether it's a half a step removed or a full step, like what you said, Dee. What you don't realize is there's actually a pre-step. You can get manufacturers to send you samples. So, it's not enough for you to actually make money off it, but it's enough to where you could test before you invest. The number of samples a manufacturer give you is going to vary, but they'll send you a sample. You'll pay for it, obviously, but that's probably like a really good little step to then be really, really confident. And then if you are confident, then you can take that full step.
Yeah, for sure. and we've seen that time and time again. We've seen that work so well. Most of the case, I think most of the stories and most of the case studies that the internet at large gets to hear are the ones that hit and are successful. What they don't really get to hear, unless you really sit the founder down or the marketer down or the product team down, what you don't get to hear are the maybe 7 to 9 tests that they had to do prior to that to really start to attenuate and find out where the sweet spot is and finally find that one thing that it is going to move and then start moving. So this small batch thing, absolutely is it. You got to stay cost sensitive when it comes to, one, in this economic climate for sure, but then also two, at the same time, unless especially if you do not wish to have $30,000 worth of inventory, and that's cost, not even retail.
Yeah, that's cost.
Right? That's cost, not even retail. So if you don't want that sitting in your warehouse and you're just taking up space and just burning a hole in your pocket every single day that it's taking up that space, going with small batch and leveraging your putting it forward like it's early access. I think that's the other part too. The messaging that comes out to go this is early access stuff for the early adopters, and you don't have to use early adopters if you're not in tech, obviously. But to go, hey, this is new stuff. If you want early access, sign up to this list, or because you're part of this list, you get early access, and put it forward we've only got 50 units, right? We've only got 30 units. And once they're gone, they're going to be gone, and you can test the next one until we get this big launch. Rather than I don't know. I'm just saying this only because I'm worried that certain brands would be like, oh, we're not quite, the messaging's we're not quite sure, and it's a bit tentative, and it doesn't really land, as opposed to trying to make it small batch as something special, something worth actually getting.
And I think sometimes there's a bit of paralysis here, afraid to make a mistake. So maybe I think that's also the reason why some brands, maybe they're quite slow on the uptake of expanding their product line, is they're afraid they're going to make the wrong mistake, which is good. I'm happy you guys have that paranoia, but I think there's so many fun things you can do to just slowly give yourself the confidence to make that decision. You don't have to just go guts or glory. I'm just going to throw the money at the problem. You really can do small incremental things. And so, for example, I'm reminded of some of our brands where some brands, depending on where they manufacture things or where they get their products, they have the option to where they can go to the manufacturer and they get a table full of samples. Or they have the option to where they can go to what's called a market. In LA and Dallas have these a lot, where you actually go to the manufacturers. And it's a massive 3-story building where you're going to these different places and you see their different samples. And what they'll do is, if they have a community or if they have their Instagram, they'll do stories and post, hey guys, do you like A or B, C or D, E or F? And while it's different when people are willing to put their credit card in front of it, but it gives you some anecdotal feedback to then make your next confident choice or to then inch your way towards the next decision.
And that's absolutely why the test part is so important. It lowers the stakes of the consequences of a mistake. And it's not a mistake because it's a test. It really is an experiment to go, we do not know if it's going to go well or not. If it's going to move or not, if it's going to bang or not. So let's go find out, and let's make sure that it is a small test, not a $30,000 test, because that's not really that's just straight faith right there.
Yeah, that's a gamble is what it is.
Right, there you go. That's even a better word. It's a straight up gamble. You're rolling the dice every single time on a $30,000 hand, as opposed to running small batches like that. And we know so many brands that do that with the small batch, and we're using email marketing to be able to test against existing customers already. The most loyal ones have the segmentation in there, and then refine, and then go to the market strong, right? And and we've been part of so many of these drops all the time because of that exact reason. And leading up to that, because we want to have a nice strong drop, we want to make sure that everything's tested beforehand, product included.
It's so funny. I was thinking of some of the brands that have had some of their best drops. And typically, using your analogy, if it's a small step removed, like you're releasing new colors, new patterns on the same main product, you can be less scared of the consequences there because it's
Mm,
such a small risk. And that's why some of our brands, like if they want to test a new design or a new pattern, they'll just add a new Photoshop graphic on their already existing product. Say, hey, would you guys like these designs or these patterns, right? And you can get immediate
right.
feedback. But then
Right.
the moment you do that full step, that's where there's actually several strategies I think we can dive into around how you can test before you invest some of those bigger step removes from your main product line.
Mm. Do you want to on this call, or are you saying like that's a whole other a different episode?
No, I think on this one, I think there's a few that we could just list some of those strategies out that people use that
Mm-hmm.
we've seen that we've even used for brands. So the first one that one of my personal favorites is I mentioned already. It's can you just use your fan base and go live or do a post or do a story and say, I'm thinking about doing this. Who would actually want it? And if it works really well, if you can show them an example, that works really well because then you'll get immediate feedback. So that's one of my favorite ones. And it's very low barrier to enter.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, the while we're on this topic, this comes from a recent conversation that I had with a brand founder, who's been running the brand for years, and she asked me a really pointed question. D, where's this balance between, like, is there a point where a brand does not need to have the like a founder story or some type of human element constantly talking about the brand? Is there a point where that is achievable for a product or a brand? Or is it always going to have to be a face in front of it, like, someone with influence and someone with a whole bunch of followers pushing that for this to be able to sell? And it made me pause there for a second because I've never had to articulate it specifically in that way multiple times. What I told her was, well, if you think about it like a scale of how stellar something is. So if the product is perceived, the product quality is actually, and also the perceived quality is perceived to be stellar. So in other words, Louis Vuitton, I could not care less about the founder story of Louis Vuitton. Like, right, they've broken through and they've hit exit velocity. Canon cameras, Sony, if it's well established and you don't really need to hinge on that. And it's also fairly unique. They've etched out their own lane in the market. If you're selling a chocolate bar, right, it's one thing for it to be Ray's chocolate bar and it just says Ray's chocolate bars. The best chocolate bar you'll find on the planet. No founder story. Versus the sales of chocolate bar, Mr. Beast. Pricing power, like saleability, ability to get into retail, all that instantly just because of the stellarness of this person's notoriety. So to maintain that balance becomes a thing. So to your point around if someone goes on like a founder or the face of the brand goes and does Instagram stories or Instagram lives and asks people and getting involved with the people, their customer base, rather than going, you know what, I'm just going to let the product speak for itself. It's like, I'm sorry, but as much as I know what you're trying to get at, your products don't talk, like literal talk. They cannot engage with your audience and your customers. So until you hit that exit velocity, keep doing that, right? Keep putting out the content, keep connecting with your people.
And one thing I would add to what you said is, and 9 times out of 10, it's because their product, there isn't something revolutionary new about it. Like there isn't a new mechanism on the product to even give it the escape velocity. So if you don't have what Dee said, and you don't have something that's relatively actually new, then you have to leverage being front facing because people will fall in love with you and your story way before they fall in love with your product. If there's nothing new about the mechanism, the quality, or the superiority of it, that's just the facts.
Yeah. Some type of novelty product wise can help move it along. But it's where we're talking, as I was talking and giving this advice, I was talking about two things here in general, right? One, the product, but then two, affinity towards the brand also. To decommoditize the product, if that makes sense. Like, if it's like chocolate bars, for example, if there is no brand affinity, why pay, I don't know, like $25 for a small little bar of chocolate? Once you start going into certain different types of brands and the reputation that they have, the justification becomes a lot easier as the brand affinity goes higher and the notoriety goes higher compared to home brand chocolate bar, right?
It's also things come in stages too. At some point, let's say you did had to leverage yourself being front facing, building some brand affinity. But as your brand does, if it ever does escape velocity, you can actually wean yourself off as well. So it doesn't mean it's a
Yeah,
forever
it's not
thing.
forever, exactly, 100%.
But it's very critical. It's typically, I see, it's very critical for brands under like $100,000 a month. It's very critical because you have to leverage the thing that no one can compete with, and that's you and your story and the why you're doing what you're doing, and that's very important.
Yeah, for sure. So first point in there, test before you invest. If you're expanding into different lines, commit to a small batch, make it early access and tap into your VIPs and use yourself or some type of front man, front woman of the brand, the face of the brand to interact with your customer base and your audiences to start getting those signals to determine then one, whether there is some heat there, but then also two, because if it's small batch, you're actually testing sales, right? People actually putting the credit card out to see whether they're, from a sales standpoint, it actually goes through. So let's move on to the next one. This one's gutsy, I'd say. That you nominated this one.
I did.
Talk me through this one. Running a giveaway, right? And on the back end of it, promoting other brands' products as if you're an affiliate.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is a bit squirrely, but if you were thinking about launching a new product and for whatever reason, maybe you don't want to take that risk or you don't want to put up the money ahead of time, you can actually run a giveaway to test a product line you want to get into. So for example, let's say I was a fitness brand. Now this is like few steps removed. Let's say I was a fitness brand and I've always had this idea of, man, like I want to sell energy drinks, but that's quite risky for me. So what if I have, because I have a big email list, I have a big fan base, what if I did a giveaway of different types of energy drink companies to test which ones my customers tend to like more? So it's, yes, I'm eating the cost in the giveaway, but it's a great way for me to test a little bit via a giveaway. Okay, like, do they like the energy drink thing? Would they like it if I launched it? What type of ingredients do people tend to gravitate towards? And that's another thing I have seen brands do this. Not a lot of brands, to be honest with you, because like there's a stigma around putting other brands anywhere near your brand. So for example, like I actually made a video about this week. I bought myself some cigars. I buy cigars online and I bought it from a new company. And in the box, of the cigars, they had inserts from like DoorDash and from Henry's Shavers but like totally different markets with like codes. So either they were getting a cut of the commission or they were also just getting paid by those companies to put the inserts in there. So the whole point I'm trying to make here is at the end of the day, if you did a giveaway on a different products, your customers aren't going to feel slighted by it. And if they don't like it, they're not going to pay attention anyway. So there's really no downside in doing it. But I have seen that work. And I would typically only recommend that is if it's a step removed, like in a new product line or a new product type from your normal business as usual.
Yeah. So if you're testing a new category, almost like or a subcategory. Yeah. It's as you're describing this, what came to mind for me is the fact that it's no different to the YouTuber that you're watching or the influencer that you're following, being an affiliate for XYZ brands across the year, right? So they might have this affiliate deal, or they might get a video might get sponsored by a certain sponsor for, January, February, March. And then once the next quarter rolls around, they might have a different roster of sponsors again. It doesn't change what the YouTuber or the influencer's perceived relationship is with their audience base. Everyone understands that game. So it's just, just a little slightly different to that game, but with the added benefit of being able to see whether there is heat in certain portions. Like, is there interest in this category in the first place? Right. So to use your legging example, if it's then going to be, I don't know, 90s sweatbands, right? So to then test whether I'm thinking about, I've got some feedback from my aunt and maybe my uncle or my supplier that sweatbands are the next hot thing, but I don't want to jump all in. So how about I follow the strategy, and I'm just going to include sweatbands from, I don't know, Wilson or one of those like tennis companies to put that in there and see whether people actually take us up on that part or not. And just based off of that, we can start moving also.
Yeah, because if you get enough people, number one, jumping on it, or you see your conversion rate increase, or even the comments from that post or the replies to whatever email you send about it, will give you quite immediate feedback right away. Or slightly adjacent to that, you could even run like a post-purchase survey saying, hey, we're going to do a giveaway of these types of different products. Would you be interested in that? Right. So there's just a really fun, different way for someone to test a new product line if they're thinking about jumping cross category.
For sure. So that's number 2, the squirrely kind of gutsy one, but makes a lot of sense. Treat yourself as if you were an affiliate and bring separate products in from other brands just for the sake of testing before you invest. Let's move on to number 3. I like this one a lot. Running live video, or just like, and also recorded, of the face of the brand showcasing prototypes of what's coming out next, talking through the detail. It's almost like running your own QVC, right? And we've seen that be so dramatic. We've seen it firsthand. The brands that are able to lean into that, how dramatically effective it is. And it does not even have to have a sale intent, right? Like those infomercials do, where they're showing it off and you call this number to go buy now. It starts to build up this anticipation, especially for the ones that build up some type of cadence, whether it's once every 2 months or once every 3 months. And then the audience base starts to grow, and they just want to actually watch what the founder or the team are thinking about dropping next, and be involved and comment and like razz one another and stuff like that too. What have you seen certain ingredients in these types of videos that work like in the favor of the brand?
Yeah, it goes back to the first point you made, Dee, is being front facing. If you don't have the notoriety, for example, I think it was like one of our first 5 episodes on this podcast, the Smell My Load brand. Remember that? Yeah, that guy on TikTok. A very classic example where just in that video, he talked about his struggle. And so the video kind of followed him along on that journey. It was short, but followed along on that journey. But the ingredients that we see all the time, and we've seen this work for like people that have a brand that they do art, they sell stuff from their art, to fashion, to supplements, to a myriad of ones. This works. But the key ingredients I believe it always has to have is you have to be able to talk about, number one, I'm gonna call it the journey you've been going on for this new product. Show it. So for example, we had a brand one time, they were making this new supplement, and they were talking about it, but they said the struggles I've had in the last 2 months, because like a whole container got sunk in the China Sea, right? Like it adds something about the personal connection you've been knowing someone struggle. So I'd say, can you talk about struggle? Number 2, can you show like in the making of it? So for example, one of our fashion brands, every time she launches a new product, she gets like this big table in like a conference room in their office, and across it just has spread all these different mock-ups of like the human structure, like on a piece of paper, and it's showing the little swatches on all these different pieces of paper. Like she's like showing all of that in the video and talking about, she's showing the progression and how hard she's been working on it. And now by doing that, your mind is thinking, man, she's going through all this effort. Like this is going to be some really good product when she launches it. So now I perceive the value of it.
Yeah. This tactic steals from the entertainment industry, right? Anyone who is a Star Wars nerd would probably also be the ones to buy back then the DVDs for the behind the scenes and the making of documentary. They want to know like, whoa, how are those like little lightsaber things? What are they? How goofy do they look on set fighting one another? Or does it like feel real? How do they train for all that type of stuff? And front loading that, there are now there are those movies that before they launch the movie, they have intentional leaks where they intentionally leak stuff from the set, right, to make it seem like it's a leak, to then drum up interest in for when they go to cinemas. To have what you're talking about is essentially what you're talking about before, showing that process and showing the struggle. It's just brand storytelling. That's all it is. It's just going, I know that our customers, you guys love us so much for these items in here, but let me show you receipts of these emails of people saying they also wish that we did this. So you know what? I bit the bullet. Here are some prototypes. I would love to know what you guys think. What do you guys think about this one? Smash the like button if you think this is the one for you. If not, smash the thumbs down. And what about this one over here? You guys won't believe. See this one over here? Like you won't believe how long it took to find this zipper. The first zipper. Let me show you the first zipper. And then you're really just embellishing how much effort you put into caring about the thing that you are going to put in your customer's hands. Let's compare, contrast that story with, see this bottle here. I spoke to some Chinese guy. I texted him on WeChat, and then he said, this is the cheapest one with the highest margins. So I'm getting you, you'll be like, what? I don't feel any connection to you whatsoever. So, live videos to showcase prototypes. We've seen that happen to work out so well, especially if it's at a regular cadence. So people expect it coming and they look forward to the next one always. It builds up that anticipation for sure.
Two things I like that I want to add to that is two other things that work is talk about how many hours, months, weeks, some kind of effort you put into it. It's like, man, I've been working on this for like the last 4 months for you guys. Right? Or the last 200 hours. And the second one is dollars you spent. Man, I've actually invested $78,000 on the R&D of this thing because those are the kind of things that when you drop it, you can actually charge a lot more because now they've been along the journey with you hearing these, right, that now their perception of the value is so much greater. Yeah. For example, that's why there's a couple of our brands I'm thinking of right now. That's why they can command prices 3 or 4 times greater than anyone else on the market because they do stuff like that. And I think that is quite important. One, for the perception of the quality. Number two, their perception of the quality of your entire brand, because they're going to think about, man, every product that I don't even know anything about on their website, if they put that much effort in this product, they did on all these other products.
Right. That's their brand ethos. That's we can trust that this founder's critical eye and being a stickler for quality is applied across all products against this brand. Love that. Absolutely. It's funny because that is exactly what we're talking about right now is exactly the thing that can help to combat against the Temus. Right. And against the Amazons, how many founders do we hear lament, be like, man, they just completely ripped my thing and now it's on Amazon for like $16. Sure, the product's on Amazon, but your brand that and all the goodwill that comes with it and that connection that you have isn't on Amazon with the other competitors. So just biting the bullet and having to and doing this, I think it almost is a like a non-negotiable. This really should be part of every single brand's playbook as much as it's feasibly possible to have some type of face of the brand is connecting.
I think it's also it's your moat. For example, I think of a very popular brand like Ridge Wallet. Sean on Twitter talks about the R&D they go into for some products. Like sometimes it's in the millions, and you look at their product, you're like, "There's no way spend $1 million on the R&D." But when he shows you the receipt, like the quality perception of that product is now so much greater. While other people might sell that product that are cheaper knockoffs, but now like just your perception just goes so much greater. So man, like
yeah,
it is important, and I wish more brands would do that because they realize they're going to make a lot more money, get a lot more attention, and they can command a lot higher prices.
Yeah, totally. Let's move down to the baby version of small batch, pre-selling. Right. Again, another tactic that we've seen brands pull off so well, essentially just running their own version of a Kickstarter on their own website. Right. They've done all the pre-work, whether it's the prototypes, and they've generated enough heat, enough interest there. And now it's time for pre-sell. So you're offering people to buy something that you have not even made a commitment to purchase for yourself, for your brand and your inventory just yet. Yet somehow we have had this conversations before where certain founders have a hesitancy towards pre-selling, as if it's going to hurt their brand or something like that. What do you think causes that?
I think the hesitation is probably scared. Can I get the products in a reasonable time? Or depending on if I haven't already shopped around for the manufacturer, will the quality be good enough? That's probably the biggest risk, I'd say. And I think the probably third one is there's probably just this feeling that it has to be mine. I have to have the product in-house to be able to sell it, which I do see brands that happening a lot, where they have to wait till the product physically gets in-house and they have to have it in-house because they want to control it. And especially
they want to feel,
yeah, and that's a real thing. Like same like people that they want to own their own home versus rent. Like it's got to be mine, and that's just some people just have that perception.
Yeah, it's funny that way. Same kind of deal, right? Like if you want it to be yours, that's why the more expensive version is the small batch for it to arrive into your warehouse or your garage, and for you to physically be able to touch it and then pack it and then ship it. That's why that lives on the higher end of the spectrum, and this lives on the lower end of the spectrum. The cost that you pay then isn't so much the money up front. The cost that you pay is potentially longer shipping times, or potentially, and really, you should be doing. You should already have touched the sample and the prototypes and all that type of stuff by now, anyhow, so that you can wipe away that whole quality concern. Understandably, quality concern might still occur at larger quantities, but you can still pre-sell a small batch. That's still a thing, right? I don't. It's a head scratcher for me, that worry. I've also heard. I don't know if you've heard this on many of your meetings with founders and stuff, but they go, "It might hurt my brand." And I go, talk me through that one without trying to be, without sounding rude. I genuinely can't wrap my head around how it could, pre-selling could hurt a brand. Have you had that kind of discussion before?
I have, and I've asked them why, and that's when they kind of shuffle their feet a bit, because it's a feeling more than there is a good explanation. And again, those people are typically the people where, because they feel like it has to be already here, it has to already be mine, has to already be made. It's typically from people that really care about those things, why they feel like it's going to hurt their brand, have that perception of the brand.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's just something someone has to get over. But because here, the big benefit, and I think this is why I think a lot of people listening to this should consider it, is you can collect that cash before you ever have to make it. So literally, if you sell enough, you can collect the cash, pay the manufacturer, and already get your profit before you ever actually have the product if you sell
Yeah.
now. So like there's a huge benefit, or it could even be the down payment to get the product from the manufacturer. So the benefit, in my opinion, as long as it's managed well and expectations are set, it far outweighs the perception of my brand. Because here's the thing. The harsh truth is people vote with their dollars what they think of your brand. So if you do this pre-selling and people don't buy to the product, or maybe it hurts your brand. So like you really have nothing to fear, then cool. Then just take it down.
That was the test.
You don't have to send
Exactly.
apologies. Yeah, just take it down and move on.
Take it down and move on, because that is the small test. Like these artificially inflated stakes around status and reputation are so detrimental because it keeps people stuck in this mode of fear. And so, it's extremely challenging to make bold business moves when you're like just gripped by fear all the time.
Yes,
You just don't move. You just kind of
you probably shouldn't run a business, to be honest with you.
Right, totally. Unless I don't know, unless you like going bald in your early 30s or something, like, right? But if it causes you that type of fear and that type of anxiety every single time, you're opting into that life, which is a whole other different point aside. The way that I handle those conversations is I bring up two things. Number one is this brand that we work with that sells like $400-$500 like pieces of handcrafted stuff, and the expected delivery time can go up to like 3 months.
It's nuts.
Yeah, and yet the customer base are just loving it and very happy to wait. And in fact, the waiting made it feel more special.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other example that I give, and this sometimes it lands, sometimes, like most times it doesn't land. The other example I give is the gaming industry. So where you pre-order a game, right? And the game might come out like in 2025, October.
Oh yeah. I spent $60 for Halo 3.
Right.
And I waited for like 9 months.
There you go. That type of pre-order. So it does come down to an expectation management thing. And if your marketer knows what they're doing and can put the messaging forward as a pre-sell and be able to manage the expectations so that the consumer goes, yeah, I totally get it. Like, fine, great, sign me up. Then again, that lowers the stakes. It's not this artificially inflated kind of like feeling, like you said, rather than very specific outcome that would happen.
Yeah. The
one it's a small test.
It is. I say the upside far outweighs the risk. Just the one risk is going to be if you turn into your entire brand being a pre-sale brand, just realize how careful to set expectations. Because if you're like 3 or 4 pre-sales in and you're still working on the last one that was 3 or 4 ago, you're going to run into a cash crunch when people are asking where the product is. So just keep that in the back of your mind. It's going to be just a customer service thing you're going to have to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And the next point, the fourth point around how to ensure that the products you invest in are going to sell is straight up asking. And we can break that down into a few categories, whether that is through polls, whether that's through like leveraging your community for voting, or whether that's through post-purchase surveys. I'd say those are the 3 that sit within point number 4. Maybe let's start at the end with the post-purchase surveys. I still believe, it still blows my mind that so few brands leverage post-purchase surveys. It's completely nuts. Do you recall any stories from the team around post-purchase surveys that just revealed so much around like what to be able to do as
I can think
the
of
next
2
step?
very recent ones. One is actually from our team and one is actually from a brand that's in our mentorship group. So from our team, for example, we were actually trying to come up with what we call an irresistible acquisition offer. And we did the most logical thing. We just asked. We just asked our customers, what do you want? And what would just be such a great offer you couldn't turn away? And they told us. And so what we did is we literally launched it and it made 6 figures from that acquisition offer, right? Very simple example. Another example was a brand, even this past week, Dee, that's in our mentorship group. They were talking about how their ads have stagnated a bit. And I know this isn't about ads, but this is an important part. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing in a post-purchase survey to understand their buying motivations? And she's like, I'm not doing one. I was like, okay, well, that's a problem, because you can literally ask a question: what motivated you to want to buy this product, or what pain are you trying to fix, or what's your desire and what you're going to use that product for? And they will literally tell you, which then informs your marketing efforts. So yes, I'm a huge believer in the surveys. Just ask.
Yes. Let's arm people with some tactics here. How should the asking occur? So besides post-purchase surveys, if we're doing any type of like voting or polling or asking the customer base, would that be via just straight up like text email with an image of like a grid of 4 different options? Should we send them to a form? If we can provide like, people with some tactics.
Yeah. So the best experience we have is sending them to a form. Like post-purchase survey is a form. It's just a SaaS product that they use forms. Because in an email, you want to send them to probably a type form to ask that question. So that's what I find to be the best, some kind of data collection, because you can't do it over text message. You can't do that over email. Chatbot, you could, but that's a whole different conversation. But I would say the easiest thing is just do some kind of a form. You can use Typeform. Octane AI is another form tool. No Commerce is another form tool for surveys like this. And those are typically the best 3, and they're pretty similar.
Yeah. And that post-purchase service aside, if it's your email list and tapping into that to be able to ask those questions, sending them to that form makes it a lot more manageable too, because it's the same fields and you can format that and export that and start looking at that.
One thing I would say is that if you're doing like a post in a community, for example, you could just ask them to comment which one you want. I kind of like to do that one just because that's quite fun, because then you can reply to them. Say, hey, well, what about it do you like? What about it don't you like? And I would say that is one that's kind of by itself, to where if I have a dedicated community, I'd opt in for actual communicating with them than like sending them off to a different link.
100%. Like, and depending on which platform you house your community on too, there also are polling features.
Yeah.
As well, so people can actually tap onto that, or just even something straight up like an Instagram story where you're asking people, you have that little sticker of like choice A, B, C, or D, and then people start to hit that. Twitter is kind of the same too. So there's so many. Most platforms would have that polling feature to be able to pull that type of stuff off. And if it's live, all the better. Like when you're asking people there. Because the comments, and then if you have someone moderating the live on the phone while you're talking, someone's on the phone just replying to stuff, that also makes it super solid too. Man, that's okay. So we went through the 4 different ways to ensure that your brand or you do not invest in something that just isn't going to move. Let's just recap it there. We got small batch testing, giving it early access to the VIP list, running giveaways, let's call it the squirrely method, running giveaways as if you're an affiliate, using live videos or just the face of the brand to tell that story, share prototypes, and find some type of feedback from the audience base. And then the 4th one, of course, is just the straight up ask asynchronously. It doesn't have to be just the live post-purchase surveys, running polls, and also just leveraging the community for some type of voting. So either running polls via email or via community. That's a bunch of stuff in there. By the way, you mentioned something earlier. You said within our mentorship program. Tell us a bit more about this mentorship program.
Well, happy you asked that, Dee. So we have been wanting to do something for years, because we get a lot of people ask us every month to want to work with us, but they can't. They're just not a good fit because they're not at that stage yet. It just doesn't make sense financially for them to work with us. And I always hate having to turn them away, because I know we can help them. And it's been one of our visions for a long time to have a mentoring group. So we just launched an Inner Circle mentoring group where people get access to all of our advanced growth marketing playbooks. They also get access to me as well. They get access to our team in a 24/7 chat, plus weekly calls, trainings, guest brand speakers. And I'm so pumped. It's been 1 week already, and we're already seeing people make more money. They're just literally watching some of our trainings, implementing even email flows to make more money. And it's quite exciting, because now we can help a lot of people intimately to help them get the growth and help them get unstuck that they're always looking for. And so, yeah, we just launched a DTC Dojo mentorship group. If you want to know where it is, look in the description on this video, and I'll see you on the inside.
Absolutely. I just to tack on to what Ray said, this is why I love that group. Not because of the fact that it's our own, but I love the fact that it is still early days, so it's small enough that anyone who joins now pretty much gets to capitalize a lot of the time in the room to be able to ask questions and get a lot more love and attention, relative to joining a larger group where you got to find your feet. They're already different types of cliques in there. They it's like joining a new high school midterm. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows one another. There's a lot of kids already. They're running around, and you're just still trying to find your feet and where you're placed in that really, really large pool. D2C Dojo, still early enough where this group right here, the founding members really are then going to be able to be selfishly ask as many questions as they need because there is space for that. Number two, they get to be part of fostering whatever culture comes out the other side after 3 months of this, 6 months of this, 12 months of this. So I'm super excited about that. DTC Dojo, I highly recommend that you guys have a look, check it out, and get the help that you need. We can only help as much as we can on this channel for an hour, and it's not like you're here able to ask us questions. But once you get in there, it is a whole other world. And I love the fact that the things that we are trying and the work that we use to constantly be pushing for the brands that we work with, those experiments, the learnings from it, also get put into D2C Dojo. So it's super real-time stuff, not like stuff from 2 years ago, which in internet marketing terms might as well be 20 years ago. Yeah. All right, everyone, that is the episode. If you like this one, I think that you'll like these episodes that I'm going to be putting up right now. And in the meantime, hopefully you go watch that. In the meantime, Ray, we'll talk next time, and we'll see you everyone out there.
See ya.